All right, welcome again. We are on chapter 9. The world and myself are one, and we will start with meditation. So first, just find yourself here. Find yourself in this moment. And find that I am presence. And allow yourself to be aware of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. And also aware that you, as awareness, are not thoughts, feelings, sensations, or perceptions. You are that which knows or is aware of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. And allow yourself to rest as the knowing element in all experience. So Rupert calls all of that, this sort of gesture of that, the inward facing path. And where we are in our studies is just beginning to look also at the outward facing path. So while resting as the knowing element of all experience, let's turn our attention towards experience again. And allow yourself to notice that all there is to experience is the knowing of it. For instance, all there is to the sound of my voice is the knowing of it. All there is to the experience of sunlight on our eyelids is the knowing of that experience. All the experience is made of is the knowing. So see if you can touch that or taste that for yourself. How experience is made of knowing. But this part in the journey, Rupert is pointing us towards how what I am is knowing, and what experience is knowing. It's made of the same. All experience of thinking, sensing, and perceiving is a coloring of awareness, a modulation of what I am. So just take a minute to test that out, feel that out. And notice what it's like to test that out. What do you notice in your body? What do you notice in your experience? Now let's take a couple of deep breaths. And shift into being with one another and sharing our experience. So, anyone want to share something from the meditation?
I just want to say thanks, BJ. I'm grateful to you for guiding that. That was really lovely.
Yeah.
Good. Go ahead, Caroline.
I didn't realize I was on mute. I agree. Yeah. The pace, your tone, it all adds to this richness of the experience. I thank you. Very nice. The quality. Yes. It's very calm. I was thinking of the watercolor picture again, and
Yeah.
yeah, that came to mind. It's a great metaphor, and that came through in your meditation with us.
Yeah.
I really resonate with this book,
Yeah.
and thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad it's meaningful to me. I mean, to you. It's meaningful to me too. Meaningful to both of you. It's meaningful to me too. I really appreciate practicing guiding meditations. There's something that's really powerful for me about it too, to be in that practice. And that's something that I practice with clients. Like I do that one-on-one, and it's interesting to do that with a group, to like track a group while I'm tracking myself, and to keep feeling feeling myself. Where are we going now? Feeling the group. Where are y'all? Where are we? Yeah, it's just neat.
That's a very, very special gift. I appreciate each one that you lead, and that is It's a beautiful gift to humanity. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, something that's meaningful about it to me too is, there's so much to learn in teaching, or like, in that space of guiding meditation. Like I don't mean in a sort of like, I don't know, like egotistical way of like, I'm teaching you. But in order for me to attempt to deliver something to you, I have to move into it even more, So it's really helpful to me too, to like, it's like a whole different flavor of meditation for myself to guide a meditation, which is really neat. So, yeah. And I could really feel like I was getting chills and tingles up and down my body, like feeling that like what I am is the same as experience, even though I've done that same meditation myself, like guiding it invites me even deeper into it, which is really cool.
Yeah, one thing that was nice for me was the way that you presence the arc of the book and what Rupert's delivering through the book that we're reading together, and then the just presencing the inward facing path and the outward facing path, and looking at how, inviting us to look at how what we are is awareness, and then also looking at what we experience is awareness or knowing. And what I found in that, looking at those two gestures, is that it's much easier for me to see how the content of my experience is like shows up for me through knowing, through I can just see how it's like it shows up for me in my awareness as conditioned awareness. But that's, for me, that's a strong contrast between like to the inner facing path, where like trying to get awareness to be my own awareness to be aware of itself in an unconditioned way, it's so much more subtle. Like there's like, what do you look at? There's nothing to look at. Like looking at awareness that isn't colored by anything is it's like the subtlest thing that exists. And it's very difficult for me. And it takes a lot of discipline for me to just keep with my mind, reminding me, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. It doesn't happen automatically for me. And it's not easy for me to really just like rest in the state of awareness as awareness and being aware of being aware or whatever. That's harder.
Totally. Yeah. It resonates. That thing that you said resonates for me in terms of like, because it's also called the neti. It's not that, but it's much harder or possibly even impossible to say what it is, right? Like, and it reminds me of like what Ross says about fourth density. Like, we can tell you what it's not. It's much harder to say what it is. It is difficult to grasp with our conditioned awareness, as you said. Yeah.
That's when Muji speaks of it as being effortless, but yet that's the paradox. I don't want to effort to be effortless, but as he puts it very succinctly, when you are in that state, you are in the height of your being.
Yeah. Well, and it is such a paradox. Like I love that experience of the effortlessness too. And I think part of what's challenging about it is we're so habituated towards effort.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we attribute, or like we think that effort is what we are. And it's just so fascinating to find like, no, you're effortlessly good. You're effortlessly whole. You're already, you don't have to do anything. That's so fascinating.
He says nowhere to go, nothing to do.
No one to be.
No activity. No hold on to mind. He says do not hold on to mind. And so it's almost like I had to really work on that a long time ago. Like I wanted so bad to understand how this felt. Like I'm trying to reach a state of which I have never been. Like consciousness dropped in. I woke up suddenly. It was a very, very quick download in my life and overnight. And within a week, like I was reading Seth within 4 weeks after I woke up and I understood it all. So it was very bizarre. Like this is all new, you know? But yeah, just to have that resting awareness of awareness.
Yeah.
That does take some practice though.
Yeah.
Meditation is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shall we read the first section?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's only 3 sections. Let's see, 1, 2, again. Yep, just 3.
Yeah.
So
Oh, wow.
we can each read one. Anybody want to go first?
I go first.
Great.
Okay. Chapter 9. The world and myself are one. In the first stage of meditation, the inward-facing path, or the way of discrimination, we extricate our essential self from everything we are aware of. Awareness turns away from objects of experience and recognizes itself as the subject of experience, the knower of the known. I am aware of the thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions, but am not myself any such object. I am that which knows or is aware of them. I am the knowing element in all experience. In the second stage of meditation, the outward-facing path, or the way of inclusion, we face the objective content of experience from which we previously turned away, but we no longer lose ourself in it. We allow it to emerge into ourself. We do not go towards experience. We let it come to us. Experience always takes place in the same place, the placeless place where awareness is, where I am. We cannot even say that experience comes to us as if it came from a distance. No experience is at a distance from ourself or other than ourself. It is ourself, knowing, being aware, or awareness itself, that assumes all forms of experience. Experience is the activity of awareness. All there is to experience is the knowing of it. All experience of thinking, sensing, and perceiving is a coloring of awareness, a modulation of what I am. Once this is clear, it is no longer necessary to take the inward-facing path. Indeed, it is no longer necessary to take any path. There is no pathway from ourself to ourself. From time to time, we may still turn away from the content of experience to rest in being as being, but we no longer do so because objective experience is problematic. Experience has lost its capacity to veil ourself from ourself. It has lost its ability to disguise its reality and instead shines with it. We are equally at home in the presence of the absence of experience.
And the absence.
The presence and the absence of experience. Thanks. We are equally at peace, resting in our own being, as we are in the midst of activities and relationships. The conflict between awareness and its objects has dissolved. The distinction between life and meditation has come to an end.
Let's discuss.
Well, do you think that when he refers to we, do you think he's specifically kind of referring to those who have placed themselves consciously on the direct path, who are like engaged in the practices that he's teaching? Does that seem like a fair assumption?
Well, yeah, I think this book is taken from his talks, and he generally is talking to people who are at his retreats or workshops.
Yeah.
So, yeah, probably literally he is.
Yeah.
But I also think there's something universal about it. I think he's talking about we as entity, conscious entities or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, that's
Anyone
that's
who,
where
yeah.
that's what I'm getting at is like, do these stages of the path that as he describes them, do they happen to everybody, whether or not they ever get on a path? I mean, is this, I know I'm probably taking this a little bit off course, but I'm just so curious about like the naturalness of what he's describing and how it takes place and how our will and our faith can accelerate that. But will it happen anyway, even if we don't place ourselves in that path? Anyway, you don't have to answer that, but I'm just kind of curious about that.
It's an interesting thing to ponder.
Yeah. I kind of, my own synopsis is that the way I view the path is that I look at like the world as this giant conveyor belt, and we're all kind of on it, but some of us are, further along. But it is God's will that we will all be awake and we will join the sonship. So maybe this incarnation doesn't lead to much progress in terms of awareness, waking up to higher self and consciousness. But whatever karma one, in my opinion, whatever karma one is working through in each evolutionary incarnation, it's always forward progression. That's how I look at it. There's no backward movement in universal consciousness. It's always expansion. It's progress. So they go back and have a life review and, find out, oops, I got to go back and repeat it. But, quantum healing and the forgiveness practice, as we talked about in Law of One, is massively important, in my opinion, as a tool for awaking to the highest self, for a lot of different reasons. But I look at it as we're all on this journey, and some of us might, very well wind up in a higher dimension at the point of transition to the next portal. Like I look at my family who are deeply, deeply under unconscious hypnosis, but they're working on their own karmic story. And they have been my greatest teacher. I believe relationships are the deepest, most healing, powerful classrooms on this earth plane. So I'm healing my family as well as healing myself and healing the collective. So it just takes more of us to awaken. But I feel like in my soul level, this is an exciting time to be alive. There's a lot of things going on. You can see it. So that leads me to, I know I've been randomly off path here in terms of the conversation, but in this particular read that Aaron just talked about, I kind of likened his mentioning of inward and outward as like when I first became aware, I was a massive hermit, and I had been somebody who was a extrovert 2.0. I got energy from being out in the world and just being with people. And all of a sudden I wanted none of that. I mean, it was like it flipped a light switch. And so I then began to go back out into the world and, experience my consciousness through, being with other people. But I realized that I couldn't take a lot of this outside. I had to go back and get my energy from being inside my home. And now I'm re-hermetizing. I realized the other day I can like stay put for a while. So I don't know. I wonder if spirit is working through me in this way, that through awareness, I'm realizing this is what my growth needs at this moment is to be. So I looked at that as like hermit versus being, more of a extrovert, for lack of a better word. I mean, my personality, did a 180. What's that?
A householder, like the two, like there's one yogic path where it's like all about being alone and being a hermit. And there's another one that's about being a part of the world and having a business and having a family. It's called being a householder. So it came to mind when you said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know the term. Have you found that you've cycled in and out of those inward and outward experiences?
Oh yeah. I think, just to speak for both of us for a second, I think we both have, we're both, community oriented and community founders, many times over the years. And we turn inwards and then we turn back outwards and we turn back inwards. Yeah. Yeah. I think the path requires both, sort of like the in breath and the out breath. You can't always breathe in. You have to, and you can't always breathe out. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to circle back to Aaron's piece, about, those sort of, so I think Rupert calls it recognitions. He says there's different recognitions on the path. Like sometimes I think people try to make it into phases. And he says he doesn't think they're phases, but that they are recognitions on the path. And I think it makes sense to me that on any path, those would be recognition, those would be things that you recognize, like we discover what I thought I was, I'm not. What I am actually is awareness, and there's different ways that we come about that and different ways that we experience that. But it makes me think of, there's the, I think what's called the 4 paths of yoga, which I think are often talked about in terms of, a path that we choose, like you can choose the Jnana path, the path of wisdom or knowledge, and to, study your way to grasping things like this, which, I think you're primarily a Jnana yogi, and then there's Bhakti yoga, which is more a path of devotion and opening the heart. And then there's other paths too, but it's interesting. Like, I think they're often talked about as like, which path are you choosing and cultivating? But I wonder if there's some deeper sort of just like pattern underneath of them that like, that there's sort of like evolution takes place on these different levels. And, is our understanding evolving before our accepting, or is our, or some like, anyway, it just makes me curious, like, are those 4 paths kind of more showing a template of consciousness rather than like, well, which one would you like to choose? Or I don't know if I'm making the distinction clear. But yeah, I just wonder about that, like, because it does seem like there's so many different ways that we come to, our realizations. And, like in your experience, Caroline, some of it was just right. It just like popped. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see it. I get it. Yeah. So
that's interesting. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I went to bed one night and I woke up the next day. I was like, who am I? I woke up the next day and I asked this question, and it was just like I went online super fast. And 2021 was just a long, dark night of the soul, and I had to be an actual hermit. I didn't go out much, and I worked remotely at home. But I needed that.
Yeah.
And I go tiptoe out in the world, and then I come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, the wisdom. That's a beautiful point about the different paths. But I wanted y'all's thoughts on the what he's saying about the inward facing and the outward facing path. But as he closes this, the conflict between awareness and its objects has dissolved, and the distinction between life and meditation has come to an end. In my understanding of that, I don't know. I know enlightenment isn't something to attain, but the one is constantly aware of being aware, would you say, in that description? That's just your default.
Yeah.
AKA
it's
Mookie. Yeah.
like it's natural, like the point at which it becomes natural and it's no longer, and it takes no effort or will on one's
Yeah.
kind of faculties. Okay, I'm going to do the practice now. The practice just becomes effortless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I can sort of see like it just in kind of response to my own prompt, like I can sort of see how it really is the case that all experiences that we have, like no matter what their quality, they ultimately come to allow us to realize that we are the one that's witnessing them. Well, that's the inward facing path. And the outward facing path is that we also are them, like at the sort of deeper level, like I don't know, that one's more distant to me to understand, the outward facing path, I guess. But I can see how, like, and again, like if I tie in what I know of the law of one and what Ra teaches, like Ra gives a map of how we discover what we are. And that's the archetypical mind. It's how we evolve spiritually as beings and how we learn what we truly are. And I can see how, like, that's the design. The Logos designed it that way. And I can sort of like, oh yeah, I can get behind how no matter what tradition you're a part of or whether or not you're a practitioner or not, like it's ultimately, we're all on a path. We're all on a path, and it's like you were saying, Caroline, it's like, we're all the conveyor belt analogy you made. Like it's all designed so that we get what we need. It's all designed so we can get there. And it's just a mystery to me why some souls seem to just like get right to that work. They just get right to it. They're born, they're incarnated, they just get to it immediately. And some take multiple third density rounds to finally like be like, all right, now I'm gonna start to wake up to what I really am. Anyway, that's an entirely different scale of topic. So BJ, as far as your understanding, is it unique to Rupert's teachings to juxtapose the inner and the outer, or the inward facing and the outward facing paths as kind of like two parts of the same work or something, like that they're like, how do you understand that? Like,
I don't think it's unique just to him, but I think there are paths that do just focus on the inward and they say this is the be all end all. And I think there are paths that focus on the outward and that say this is the be all end all. And yeah, he puts them together as a holistic, two parts of a whole, and how they inform each other. But I don't think he's alone in that. I think that's standard in the direct path as far as I have experienced it.
Well, I also think too that the inward path is certainly necessary. However, how do I test out my consciousness into the world without going out into the world and being in relationship, even if it's just, the neighborhood grocery store or whatever, but it's working my consciousness through being around my other selves. It's sort of like, to me, the world is a testing ground of, there might be a trigger that pops up or something, but ultimately I want to go into the world and I want to see myself in everyone. I want to see everyone is me. We're all one. But I'm not going to know that unless I leave this hermit kingdom, pardon the North Korean reference, and go out into the world of experience and work it out, because the relationship classroom is really where it's at. So,
yeah, I've heard people say, like, you can, go to a cave in the Himalayas and think you're like, oh yeah, I made it, I'm here, and then like go spend a week with your family,
Right.
bust that illusion. Go test it.
Somebody I know once said to me, everybody's spiritual till you get behind the wheel of a car. It's like, I know. Keep that in check. But that's where the rubber meets the road in my own experience. It's
Yeah.
how do I interact with the world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, everywhere I look, I see what I'm looking for. But
Yeah.
how do I know that if I'm alone and I'm constantly on the inward path?
Yeah.
100%. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And one of the pieces of my practice that I think I've gotten pretty good at, but I'm not always there, is like being like welcoming of noticing where I'm stuck, like when I'm in a relationship that is showing me some of my fear or some of my, judgment, or, then it's like, okay, good. This is good information. This is going to help me get more free, because I want to find where my sense of self does get caught in those stories or those traps, or it's like, okay, good. And again, like, not like I'm always there. Sometimes I'm like, this person just needs to get out of my life, or but sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, okay, good, I'm triggered, this is some catalyst, show me, what do I need to know? where do I need to focus to allow my I am presence to not get caught in this experience. My I am presence is getting caught in this experience and feeling like I am dependent on them changing in order to, be okay, or
Right.
okay, how can I get out of that? Thank you for exposing it. Like, I'm looking for my shadow, so thanks for showing me.
Nothing is random. It's always the universe works beautifully to bring those experiences to us when we go out in the world, to see our shadow and to work on that.
Yeah.
I had something come up this week and I was like, had to step back and I thought, what is this lesson here? What is this showing me?
Yeah.
And at first, of course, for a brief moment, I was like, I don't want to be seeing this. And then I realized this is for my greatest good. And I'm grateful that I'm not afraid to look deep and say, what is really going on here? How can I heal from this? Ultimately, neutrality is a very pleasant place for my soul to rest, that everything is okay. Love is everything is okay. So I really want to feel in that space of neutrality. It's okay. Whatever it is, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because I am exactly where God wants me to be in every single moment. I mean, to resist that to me is to defy the way the universe is working in my favor. It's always conspiring in our good.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And something that's really helped me get to that place is specifically these kind of I am meditations of like, the I am is always okay. The I am is always untouched, even if some, like I go out after this call and drive and get in some terrible car accident, the I am is completely untouched, cannot be harmed. It's just more information. It's more there's more to be known. Now the I am knows car accident. The I am can't die. And that's just been really fascinating to me to like find that. Yeah, that's something that's really helped me find what you're pointing to. Like, oh, right. Everything is okay. Because I think a lot of times before that it's been kind of a concept. It's like, okay, I get it, and I'm not going to fight reality, but I don't quite get it. How is everything okay? Yeah. Want to read the next section?
Sure. The word existence comes from, oh wait, that is right. The word
Yes.
existence comes from two Latin words, ex, out of, or from, and sistere, to stand, indicating that something that exists stands out from its background, just as an object in a movie seems to stand out from the screen. What is the background from which everything that exists stands out? Being. Nothing in a movie is distinct from the screen or has its own independent reality, nor in real life does any person or object exist in its own right. They are names and forms of a single, infinite, and indivisible being. Everything in a movie is a coloring of the screen. Existence is a movement of being. The being or presence shared by all people and things is infinite, and everything that is seen, heard, touched, tasted, or smelled is its transitory name and form. Sorry. Everything we encounter is a manifestation of that which truly is, pure being, or in religious language, God's presence. No object exists independently of God's being. This is what was meant by the Islamic prayer, La, well, I don't know how to say that. Or there is no God.
Ilaha illallah.
Okay, thank you. Or there is no God but God. No thing has its own independent existence. No person or object is an entity unto itself. Nothing actually exists. If properly understood, this is not a nihilistic statement. On the contrary, it is an affirmation of the fact that every object or event we encounter is a temporary name and form of eternal, infinite being. As the Sufis say, wherever you look, there is the face of God. The apparent existence of things is borrowed from that which truly is, God's infinite being, just as the apparent reality of objects in a movie is borrowed from the reality, relatively speaking, of the screen. Things don't have their own existence. Being has things. Selves don't have awareness. Awareness has selves. We do not think of things because they exist. They seem to exist because we think of them. Thought abstracts discrete objects and selves from the reality of God's infinite and indivisible being. To feel this reality in the midst of experience is to know beauty and love. It is God's presence shining in and as existence.
Yeah. Let's open it up. I love this section.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry.
You go.
I got stuck on the middle of 86 there, that the fact that every object or event we encounter is a temporary name and form of eternal infinite being.
Yeah.
Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. That's the entire A Course in Miracles metaphor. So I was like, in unpacking illusion, I see that soul existence is what is real. Love is real. I may be misinterpreting this, but I'm not sure that I have a good handle on what he said in that little part of the paragraph. Is everything have a name, as in God? I don't know. That's not in line with like a thinking consistent, I suppose, with a thought system that I subscribe to. So I had to read that a couple of times and I wasn't sure. Maybe I'm off base. I don't know.
Well, and to use one of his other metaphors, it's like King Lear can't actually be threatened. Because King Lear never actually existed. King Lear was just the activity of John Smith. I think that's what he means. Like everything that beingness seems to become is only the movement of beingness. It never was real to begin with, in a way.
It seems to me that Spira was hinting to everything is a piece of the face of God. And I see that in living form, I suppose, in the physical. But anyway, maybe like I said, maybe I was straying off path, but I kept coming back to A Course in Miracles, and I'm like, nothing real, nothing unreal exists. Like, why is this the face of God? I see the face of God in the divine being of the plant world, the animal kingdom, but I take things literally sometimes, and maybe I went off the wrong end of the pool. I dove into the wrong end of the pool with this one.
Yeah.
Can I try to
Yeah,
share
please.
perspective on it and see if it speaks to your question. I love that section too. I mean, it's just I'm so struck with how Rupert is speaking to the like it's so simple in some ways, but it's so mind-blowing what he's talking about. And it's the core of the Law of One, and it's the core of Walter Russell's teachings. And it's like they all three of them are pointing to the exact same, like it's so simple. And I think what he's saying is that, or another way to say it, and this is my translation, is that like all motion, all movement, all existence, all form, not existence, sorry, all experience and all form are simulating God. They're not God.
Mm-hmm.
They're simulating the face of God.
Okay, yeah.
They're projecting, portions of what God is interested in, but they're not actually God itself. Like, or I mean, I don't know. It's a paradox because now we're getting into the inward and outward facing path. Like, it's both and. They both are the movements, the experiences, every object or event that we encounter are simulating some portion of God's infinite thought, but they're not actually the reality that is unchanging and unmoving.
Yeah, that helps me. Thank you. Yeah, that clarifies. I was taking the interpretation incorrectly in some regard, but I got really stuck there, and I'm like, I know Spira has a very interesting way of presenting conscious material in a sublimely effortless, easy way, but yet it's so rich. I don't know, it's multi-layered, and sometimes I take things literally, and so I was like, what? This contradicts something that I was thinking of. And yeah, I agree with the Sufi statement, wherever you look, there is the face of God. I mean, I don't have a problem unwrapping that one. But thank you, for the clarity on that. I appreciate it.
Well, I don't know if this resonates for you, Caroline, but for me, it's like, if I go to turn to these mystics like Rupert or like Ra or like Walter Russell, who are trying to point to this underlying truth behind everything, if I process their teachings or their pointings through my lower triad, through my sense of self, through my personal sense of an individuated Aaron, it's very confronting and challenging and difficult and scary. But it feels like if I process it from the heart or up, it's like ecstatic. Like it's so exciting to be reminded of this. Like when I read this, I'm like, oh, Rupert, reach it. Remind me of this part of reality that I need to be reminded of. Anyway, so I don't know if that resonates for you, but sometimes I can feel that I'm reading it through the perspective of my own you know, like you were saying earlier, like the ego lens, and it doesn't land very well. It lands as like, what
Right.
is it talking about? There's not, you know what I
Right.
mean? That's who would judge this as a nihilistic statement. But from the heart, if you
Wow,
read it
that's
from the
good.
heart, or from, like, you know, universal wisdom, it's just sublime. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Thank
It's
you.
interesting that you bring that up in terms of the like resistance, and then also like the resistance in the lower triad, and then the sublime, like, you know, bliss experience in the upper. Because I was feeling a similar thing, like in terms of that sentence that says, or the two sentences on 86, things don't have their own existence. Being has things. Selves don't have awareness. Awareness has selves. And a related thing that I've been working with is like, I'm not in the world is in me. And like when I touch into that, you know, the flip of like that he's pointing to, and that like, oh, the world is in me, there's like, whoa, like there's this like amazing blast off, you know, that happens, that I get in touch with. And then there's like this like, holy shit, you know, like down low, that's like, nah, I'm about to dissolve, you know, like I'm not going to exist anymore. And it's really fascinating to play with that, you know, and to like have compassion and patience for the parts of me that are like, no, nope, not ready. And then also play with the parts of me that are like, oh yeah, we are ready because it's already true.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Well, it's kind of piggybacking what is said when the statement, things don't have their own existence. Being has things, selves don't have awareness, awareness has selves.
Yeah.
But you say that one quote I said one time, that all situations aren't out there, all situations are in me. It was some quote from Rupert Spira that I found. I put it on the thread. I am is everything. Yeah, I am the world. I think that was a very heavy milestone initially in realizing that God is not out there, like I am God. That was a huge shift of perception, which is a miracle.
Yeah.
As in, of course, a miracle is a shift in perception, that I've been taught that God is, you know, out there somewhere, the religious dogma. But to wake up, and I told my pastor when I left the church, God is in me. Eternity is now. The kingdom of heaven is within me. That brings so much peace, and it really does embody so much self-empowerment, going from disempowered to empowered to know that everything is. I am everything. I am the world. We do not think of things because they exist. They seem to exist because we think of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As A Course in Miracles says, ideas leave not their source. Yeah.
Yeah, what that brings me back to is just like what I was experiencing in the meditation, like the self that is awareness can seemingly get lost in experience, but all experience is a coloring of self, coloring of what I am. It's a coloring of knowing. And I can lose track of I in the color, but I is always there. I don't know. I think I lost track a little bit of what I was connected with when you first shared it, but Yeah, it's like I knowing is all there is. In so many different forms and colors and, conditions, right? Like the way that you were saying it earlier, conditioned awareness, Aaron. Like there's so many ways that awareness can be conditioned, but it's all awareness. It's all just knowing. It's all just the mind of God, which is what we're in touch with. It's not some far away thing. It is what we're in touch with all the time, is what we are all the time, the mind of God. So fascinating.
Yeah.
It's all it ever is.
Would you say that awareness is a sixth dimensional awareness? Universal mind, God consciousness. Is that a sixth dimensional awareness?
I think I don't understand the question, but Aaron.
Well, like I know, like we're in the third dimension, and then we've talked about the fourth. But from what I've read about the different levels and dimensions of consciousness, that coming to the understanding of God consciousness and unity awareness of I am the universal mind, I am God, that is an elevate,
Right.
that is past fifth dimensional. I don't know. I'm just curious.
That,
But I
that
can't.
resonates for me in as much as we were talking about, like, just earlier, we were talking about the point at which it becomes natural.
Mhm.
When you're like seated in having experience, but knowing, like just being, like I forget how we were saying it before, but like aware, we're so connected to that we are awareness, that all experience emerges as like, oh yeah, that's me. I think that's sixth density. I think that experience that's
Yeah.
like when all beings and incarnate, that's just the natural state. That's what happens at sixth density. And I think we taste it from here, from third. I think we can taste it, we can cultivate it, we can like, we can even graduate through our desire to have that experience. We can graduate from third density purely through that desire to be in that state. But it's not native to this density. That what we're talking about is not it's not the goal of third density, is to like be seated in this perfect awareness all the time. That's pretty advanced from this perspective, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. And one of the other thing that Ross says about sixth density is that it's where there's a resolution of paradox. And I think paradox is fundamentally sort of like form-based understanding, because two things seem to be opposed. There's like that, but then there's that. Wait. But the paradoxes can resolve when you come back to the understanding that there's only one thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, that makes sense to me, that would be sixth density as well.
Yeah, polarity collapses.
Yeah.
Duality collapses. But from my understanding is that beyond fifth density, the universal consciousness is a hallmark there of sixth density awareness.
Yeah. And I think the way I would slightly modify your statement. I don't think polarity collapses. I think it's unified. It's the paradoxes are resolved because
Okay.
I think in this state of awareness, if you're so seated in knowing that you are sort of like the witness, you are awareness, you can kind of like take the perspective of like, almost like you're outside the universe. No, you're not outside the universe, but you're like the surface of the universe. And you can see all of any dimension of drama or anything that's moving is happening inside of you. So the polarity is still happening. The polarity is still playing out. Like there's still light and dark. But in sixth density, you're residing in such a stable state of awareness that you're like, you are the surface of the universe itself. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I'm using it as a metaphor, but you're the surface of the universe watching all of it. And you know that you're both the universe and you're everything that's happening inside of it. And that's another way of saying the inward and outward facing paths, I think. But I think that's the modification I'm offering, is that like, it's just polarity still taking place. Experience is still happening. Experience is still made of light and dark. to different degrees. That's what conditioning is, but it's just known as residing within the true self or something, the unified perspective of awareness. So I wonder, can I introduce a new question or like a related? I would just be curious to hear from you too. I struggle with equating awareness with experience. Like here, we're contemplating that experience is sort of made of awareness. Is that right?
Yeah, the way that he says it is like, so for instance, take the experience of the chair, the sensation of the chair that you're sitting in. So what is there to that experience other than the knowing of that experience? What is the experience made of other than knowing?
Well, there's the knowing of how I sense the chair directly with my senses. And there's also the knowing of what I've come to learn about the chair's form, or whatever. So like there's the sensations of the chair that I experience. There's also the thoughts I have about the chair. The sensations and the thoughts are distinct. They both arrive to me in experience.
Yeah.
They arrive to me in my awareness. But one is the body, the body's experience of them, and one is the mind's experience of them. And both of those take place in awareness.
Yeah.
So that's my response. But I guess what I'm struggling with is that my picture of awareness is that it doesn't move. It has no motion to it. It's eternal and it's still. It just witnesses and it never changes. It's always the same.
Yeah.
And so that's where I get a little bit maybe confused when I'm trying to contemplate the idea that the inward facing path teaches me about I am, and the outward facing path teaches me about everything that arises within I am. And I guess I just get a little bit confused or lost when I try to understand the relationship between awareness and the moving conditioned qualities that happen inside of awareness. Is that making sense, my question?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not something that I have mastered. But I have sat with some of Rupert's meditations where people have had this same question, and he's guided them into, just more drawn out, of a further meditation than, of what I just offered to you. Like, okay, go into that experience, and what is there in that experience other than the knowing of it? And, he says that in different ways, and, then they respond, and then, and I feel challenged by it too. But as I've sat in that meditation a few different times, because I've seen him, various recordings of people asking that same question, I can't find anything other than the knowing of it, or anything that I have proof of. It's like, no, because there's a chair. Okay, well, what is there to the chair other than the knowing of it? Can't find anything. So I definitely haven't mastered it, but I've sat in that meditation a few times. And it feels like to me, we can call them different things. Like I sort of think of the I am as sort of like potential energy, or the potential to have an idea. and then the knowing of something as an idea, so they can seem like different things. But then I really appreciate how he ends up pointing to, like, I am is the capacity of knowing, and experience is just knowing. So it is the same thing, which, yeah, there's definitely moments that it's like, that feels like a leap. But then I also have touched where it's like, oh, it's the same. It's the same. It's the same. It's just colored or not colored, or like conditioned or not conditioned. But yeah, I mean, I definitely don't have mastery of that, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts. It's helpful.
Sometimes I wonder if it's almost, I have to turn a light on here. Just a moment. Like a chicken and the egg concept. What comes first, awareness or experience? Are they simultaneous? Do I have experience and then I have awareness? Does awareness come and the experience flows? But to break down that mental construct, sometimes I find it helpful just to not even try to reside in a place where I know what anything is for. Beautiful cluelessness of, I don't know what this table is for. I don't know what that window is for. Neutrality.
I think that can be really helpful too, to like just rest into the invitation, as though what he's pointing to is true. And also I find it's really meaningful and beneficial to my path to test it, and so, like, as I was in the guided meditation, for instance, as I was leading the outward facing path, like, test it, taste it. What are you experiencing? I think that's really, really meaningful to find it for yourself, because otherwise it's just a concept, which, then I think it points to the different paths. Like, if I just trust it, in a sort of bhakti yoga way, the insight can be delivered to me. Or I can go in and test it, which, I don't know, maybe that's jnana yoga, maybe that's karma yoga, I don't know. Or I can go in and test it and see if I can directly find out, do the work of finding out, figuring it out.
Well, one of the things I've learned is that I've given everything in this world the meaning that it has. So if I take it down to, I strip it down to, I don't know what this XYZ is for, then I can reach a state of awareness where it is neutral for me. I don't have a preconceived notion or my own meaning. I have given everything in this world the meaning that it has. And that's I think in what I'm sensing from this dialogue kind of goes with that. Is it easy to do? No, because I was raised to know what a pencil's for, a table's for, my clothes are for. But I just want to go back to a place where I gave that the meaning. I don't know what it's for. And then awareness in a new way can spring forth.
It's powerful.
Well, I'm just going to say to the universe that I'm interested in knowing directly how it is that awareness and experience are the same thing. Calling that in, I'm calling that direct experience in.
And it will come to you. You just put it out there and that answer will pop in real quick.
That's exciting.
Thank you. Thanks for voting my victory.
Let us know what you find.
Okay. I most certainly will. Right. Shall we read the last piece?
That's what I was about to say.
Sorry, I'm facilitating. It's not my role.
I love it. Step in. Help me out. It's fascinating that I was like, oh, this chapter's so short. There's only 3 of us. We're gonna have so much time, and it still has flown by. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I just realized it's 7:52.
I know. It did go
I had
fast.
no idea. Yeah.
If we make an investigation into ourself, we find only unlimited self-aware being, I am. If we go outwards, towards the objects of the world, we find only infinite being. How many infinite beings can there be? The great recognition at the heart of all the religious and spiritual traditions is that the amness of ourself and the isness of things is the same infinite and indivisible whole or reality, made of pure awareness or spirit. This reality, shining on the inside as the knowledge I am, and on the outside as the knowledge it is modulated by thought and perception, and appears as a multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves, just as everything that appears in a dream at night is the activity of a single, indivisible mind. Awareness is the essence of ourself. Being is the essence of the world. These are not two. Their unity is refracted by thought and perception, but never actually ceases to be the same infinite, indivisible reality or whole. The revelation of this reality is the impulse behind all great art. It was for this reason that the filmmaker Pier Paolo Pasolini said, "I want my films to restore to reality its original sacred significance." It is what Cézanne meant when he said of his painting, "I want my work to give people a taste of nature's eternity." And it is what Bach was referring to in religious language when he said, "All my work is composed for the glory of God." The isness of all things and the amness of all selves is the same infinite, indivisible, self-aware being, known in religion as the presence of God, in science as consciousness, often referred to as awareness, and commonly known as I. So yeah, with a few minutes left, let's
I think
open it up.
Rupert Spira makes a point in that first paragraph of whether we're going inward or we're outward, it's all infinity. I mean, it's infinite possibility, whether we're pointing to our I am presence or the objects of the world, it's only infinite.
Yeah.
So is the inside the outside?
Right.
It's all.
Yeah, I like that question of how many infinite beings can there be? That like, and I've heard, you know, because I've spent a lot of time with him in videos and stuff, that like, if you just kind of follow that logically, there can only be one infinite being, because otherwise there would have to be an edge. You know, here's an infinite being and here's an infinite being, and they would have to overlap and thus be the same, or they would have to hit, you know, and have an edge. There's an edge to this being and an edge to this being, which means they're not infinite, which just like logically is like, oh, there can, if what I am is infinite,
Yeah.
and what you are is infinite, there can only be one. Oh, like just logically. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Is it? I kept thinking of Dolores Cannon's holographic universe this evening as we've talked, and just the holographic presentation, as you were mentioning, all the seeing everything at one time, all lives playing out simultaneously. But she does such a great deep dive into what the convoluted universe is and the holographic universe, to be able to, that explains why time, you know, is an illusion. But this is an interesting rabbit hole. Like the inside is the outside. There is no edge. That's a beautiful that's a beautiful pointing for me, because that's true. Seamlessness must have no boundaries. So to have an edge would mean there was a stopping point and an ending and a beginning. Even death is flow. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I really
Mind
like that.
can't
Thank you.
grasp no edges, right? Mind is like, okay, but there must, but where's the
Yeah,
show me the edge.
the horizon on the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading today from Walter Russell's book, and he says that there was no beginning to creation, and there's no end. It never started. Like, it's infinite in time too. It's like it never started and it never ends. It's like, what are you? It's like it just blows my mind so much when I try to like understand that. It's like that the mind cannot understand that.
Yep. There was no start. Yep.
Yeah, there are things of which our human finite mind wants to wrap itself around and to grasp and understand the context of the material in this form. And yet there's so many things in consciousness that defy all logic of the human brain. You just rest in the knowing it is truth with a big T.
Yeah.
And that's why it resonates as such a deep conviction, like, I know this.
Yeah.
The truth is truth, and truth is self-evident. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Well, any final comments?
Random asking, Saturday we're meeting, right, for 4D until okay. I just was going to double check. I haven't made the last two and I want to be here this Saturday, but it's just till 5, yeah?
That's
what it
the
said on
end
the
of 40S, but then there's a potluck after.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yay, okay. Wow, we squeezed a lot of juice out of a few pages.
Yeah.
You sure did.
I appreciate
Well, he
it.
packs that juice in, right? Like
And we
you were
also
saying,
burned
it's so layered.
We burned through an hour and a half and like
I
it went so
We
fast.
totally did. Oh my gosh, that was so fast.
know. Thank you.
And
Thank you both.
the Being Myself study group glow is real for me. For me anyway.
It is in my
wah.
I really enjoyed Law of One on Sunday. Those last 2 weeks have been very, very interesting. And it seems like there's some sub material working its way out of that space into it's expanding. Some people with some great knowledge. So thank you for the edge. I'm really going to chew on that one, BJ. That's actually something that has not become part of my on my radar, my conscious radar. I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Consciousness cannot be boxed. It is infinite. Yeah. Thank you. Well,
thanks, y'all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Guys, thank you. Have a great rest of your evening.
You too.
Likewise.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.